It has been a very, very eventful time in the country called Kenya, especially concerning this Adani manenos. Oh, Adani, Adani, Adani. What? Now, let us get a few things right from the onset. What has happened to Adani in the United States of America over this indictment is extremely serious. And whatever our politicians say, whatever decisions they seem to make people happy, whatever they do does not matter. The truth is, things will never be the same again. Actually, bila kizungu mingi, Adani business in Kenya, kwisha maneno. Okay? And I will explain in great detail why. Okay? Number two, whichever way you want to look at this, whichever angle you want to take, whatever excuses you want to use, this one is very, very bad news for the Ruto regime. Of course, in my opinion, it is very good news for the long-suffering Kenyan, for Kenyans who have been making noise, for Kenyans who have been complaining to a government that is deaf to what her people are saying. Of course, I'm not blind to the possible consequences and repercussions on ordinary Kenyans of this development. But the long and short of it is that this is an excellent holiday gift to Kenyans, this development. And of course, I will also explain in great detail why I am saying this. But before we proceed, please allow me to introduce once again the sponsors for today's video. LemFi. This is an app for sending money. And so far I've received a lot of positive feedback. Yeah, it has many advantages. And you can also use my code, signifying that you heard about it from me. KUMEKACHA. Yeah, you can see it on your screens right now. I would strongly recommend that at least you try it and see how it goes. I am also keenly aware that we're heading towards that holiday season where a lot of people will want to use exactly such a service. Try it out and please let me know how it goes. Either way, you know, when this news broke in the United States, somebody woke me up with this information. And on the onset, as I started processing it, the first question on my mind was, why now? Because in this life, sometimes you can find a lot of answers in the timing. Why now? Because the truth is, the Adani group has been investigated for a long time. Rumors of corruption have been flying around for a long time. Over a year, close to 2 years. Why now? And please don't buy that excuse that investigations have been ongoing for a long time and the breakthrough has only come now. Don't buy that one. Okay? It is always all about timing. And then my thoughts as I looked at the body language of the president, giving the State of the Nation address in Parliament and announcing the cancellation of the Adani deals, both at the airport and with our energy sector. The thought that came to my mind is that there are some suddenly wealthy people in Kenya who are not going to sleep too well over the next few days and maybe even weeks. Why? Because where this is going, it seems we're going to have some revelations which may not be directly linked to corruption in India, but is linked in totality to the whole deal which Americans invested in. We're going to have those kind of revelations. And some of them, wait for this one, may touch on powerful people in the country called Kenya. Aya, yeah, 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 yeah. You see, in this kind of business, quite often, not all the time, quite often, the side shows overshadow the main show. Okay, of course, the main show will be the developments over the indictment by the Justice Department in the United States. And the sideshow will be revelations linked to the indictment. Okay? Journalists all over the world, and now social media journalists all over the world, will be looking to get ahead of this story. And you can be sure some of them will be successful. Okay? And will get that bit of information and that bit of information, and it'll pile up. And by the way, this is not an accident. The very powerful people who are behind this, that is one of their key objectives. Now, I've said something that may confuse you, the powerful people behind it. Just hold your horses. I will come to that shortly. Because I believe in this whole Adani manenos. As happy as Kenyans are, as happy and delighted and celebrating as some of us are, I believe it is prudent to step back a bit, look at this thing closely, and try and figure out exactly what is going on here. Now, it is said that Gautam Adani, the main guy behind the Adani group, is one of the richest people on planet Earth. I heard somebody say over the last few hours, the second richest in India, in the country called India. And that one reminded me of yet another billionaire from the past with a lot of similarities to Bwana Adani, yeah? And also with very close, tight links to the country called Kenya, who ended up in a situation very, very similar to what Gautam Adani is now facing. Hey, you know, history is valuable because it tells us a lot of things that are easy to overlook when you're looking at a breaking news story. Yeah. Now, of course, I'm talking about a man called Adnan Khashoggi. I believe he's still alive. He should be well over 80 years old today. Now, Adnan Khashoggi, many older Kenyans will remember that name immediately. Adnan Khashoggi was doing very well. He got his reputation as an international arms dealer. He had his friends in Nairobi, people like President Jomo Kenyatta. He was a very powerful man, worldwide. And at one point, he was considered the richest man on earth. And please note, he had friends everywhere. The intelligence community in the United States and elsewhere, powerful government officials all over the world, etc., etc. In fact, it is said that he was one of the consultants to the United States government, United States military actually, as they were preparing for the Gulf War, I believe the first Gulf War. And then suddenly, in 1988, screaming headlines emerged that Adnan Khashoggi had been arrested in Switzerland. I believe that was in 1988. Now, what happened next is very important to note, and I believe is very relevant to our current situation. How that story ended was not with the jailing of Adnan Khashoggi. No, I don't think he was even ever convicted of any crime. However, that initial arrest was enough to bring his very prosperous, huge empire crumbling down. It collapsed like a house of cards. And suddenly, Bwana Khashoggi was no longer even a rich man. Now, I know you agree with me that the biggest temptation here, is to suspect that somebody somewhere, very powerful, decided that they no longer wanted Adnan Khashoggi rich, and therefore they decided to make a move. A small move. Just arrest the man on some fraud charges or something like that. And then everything else fell into place according to their plans. Okay? Now fast forward to the present. There is one question which nobody has asked. Yeah, people have touched on it, but they have not really asked. And that question, simply put, is, can the Adani empire survive the indictment in the United States of America? Can it? Now, according to local billionaire Jimmy Wanjigi, the answer to that question is no. Okay, because he has already been quoted as saying that what has happened will cause the Adani group to go bankrupt. Bwana Jimmy Wanjigi has been quoted as saying that. I know many of us may have missed that. Now, of course, Wanjigi is very qualified, much more qualified than I am to make that call, isn't he? But there's something else. This move on Adani will also have another major impact. And this brings us to the next question. Are there some governments that will fail to survive as a result of this development? India, for instance. Kenya, for instance. That is the question. And I believe the answer to that question is yes. There's some governments that may not survive this latest development. Why? Because the American Justice Department has a reputation. It has a reputation for being thorough. Don't forget, it is the same department that completely finished organized crime in the United States of America. And the way they did it was ingenious. The way notorious criminal Al Capone was brought down was not from evidence of the criminal activities he had taken part in. No, it was on tax evasion. Believe it or not, they nailed Al Capone on tax. American Justice Department, moto ya kuotea mbali sana. And now I believe you can start to believe me when I tell you that the revelations that could come out of this one, yeah, the side shows, could completely drown and overshadow the main show. Okay? And on a very serious note, I don't think the Modi government in India is going to survive this one. I also don't think that the Ruto regime is going to survive this one. Although, of course, there are a lot of other factors. There are a lot of other things beating at the Ruto regime. And this will be added to the long list. But bottom line, they will not survive this one. I don't think I need to remind you that this whole manenos came from the fact that Adani got investors who were Americans. American people invested in Adani. And therefore anything remotely linked to this Adani company, this Adani energy company, will not go untouched. And the revelations you should be waiting for will just blow your mind. I hope to do a follow-up analysis on this, but for now, I believe I've given you more than enough to start chewing on. Hey! Wapi ile bobgon? Toa magunia. Bwana 7G, toa gunia kama 10. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.